Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today we are doing a card with the Best Friends Forever set from the Colorado Craft Company. Before we get into the Copic coloring combinations, I do just want to note that they are having a sale right now. Colorado Craft Company is. It's a buy two, get one free, and that is good up until August 23rd at midnight. That is when the sale stops. So in case you're just catching this video and you're in that window, I'll talk about the sale a little bit further down as well. But I just wanted to mention it in case you're, limited on time to pick up those things. So here are these combinations are kind of like my go-to bright color combinations, especially because I do a lot of coloring with florals. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that because a lot of time people say that they're not sure how to select colors. So I did 6 combinations today that you can see, and then once I'm done coloring all of them, obviously I showed you them at the beginning, but they'll be kind of like a freeze frame there for a minute where it has all of the colors listed, and you can stop the video there if you need to, or at any point you can stop the video and look at what the combinations are. Here I'm just showing you how far apart they are on the spectrum. So for the first one, which is my reds, you're starting with an R32 and ending with an R59. For the pinks, I'm starting with an RV02 and ending up with an RV69. And the reason that almost all of my colors end in 9 for my shadows is because these are going to be the darkest colors. Now, just because they're dark doesn't mean they're not a brighter color. It just means that they are a darker intensity and they go with those bright colors. There's no gray in them. Whereas if you start to get into colors where the first number is higher up, it tends to be a little bit more on the gray side. So like if you had a V96, that's going to be much more muted than a V06. The O is kind of like the brightness of it. And you want to have a good spectrum when you're selecting your Copic colors. When you're coloring, and you'll see this more when we start coloring the actual card, your lightest color is your highlight, your darkest color is your shadow, and they will be the least amount of what you see in your finished piece. Your 2 midtones, if you're using 4 color blends like I tend to, your 2 midtones is what you're going to see the most of. So for like this orange combination, it's a Y08, a Y38, a YR04, and a YR09. So you're going to see the most of the Y38 and the YR04 in my orange flower. The colors, the reason why it looks kind of crazy, and you're especially going to think so when I show you this yellow one, you're going to be like, you're out of your mind. That's not yellow. But it will be. It'll be a yellow flower. Is because you have to have depth in your coloring if you want dimension, and you cannot get that without having lights and darks, highlights and shadows. You need it. So feel free to stop it if you need the color combinations, if you need to read them, and you want to write that down for your own personal use, feel free to do that. So now that I've showed you the color combinations, then we're going to apply it to actual flowers. So I am stamping this down. If you're coloring with any kind of alcohol markers, obviously I'm using Copic. You want to use a Copic safe ink. There's a lot on the market now. I remember when I first started Copic coloring, pretty much you could only use Memento Tuxedo Black. And honestly, it wasn't like a dark black ink. So things have come so far since then. So the one I usually tend to go towards is the Hero Art Intense or Intensified Black. I also like Honeybee's Intense Black. Who else has one that I like? Gina K's Amalgam ink I like. So there's a couple of different ones on the market that are going to be available to you. I tried to show you at least one of whatever I was doing. So like here, I'm going to show you, I'm coloring this heart with the red combination, but I will also show you how I colored a flower with this red combination. If you guys watch my videos, you know I don't like cutting out anything if I can help it, but I like to show you at least one because when I specifically am going to learn something, especially a lot more in the beginning of my card making journey, when I was going to learn something and I saw a card that had what I wanted to achieve, and then I watched the video and found out that that part was cut out, it was just endlessly frustrating. And so I try to leave at least one in. So now that that heart is done and colored, I'm going to go in with my pink. And so because this image, it's a beautiful image and I love it. I think it's a gorgeous, like kind of half wreath, but it's a little bit, it's got a lot going on. It's a detailed kind of flower. So in order to make sure that I know what I'm looking at, when I have those kinds of scenes, I like to go in and just fill in all of one color what I'm going to be coloring. And so that's my lightest color. And then when I color, if you're new here, I go from my lightest color to my darkest and my darkest back out to my lightest. There's two reasons for this. The first reason is because I am very heavy-handed if I start with my dark color. Whatever color I start with is definitely going to be the most of that on the paper. And so if I start with my lightest color, then it's easier to cover up with the darker colors. The second reason is because if I made a mistake in my shading or where I want my shading to be, it's so much easier to fix it if it's not a super dark color, if it's a light color. So here you can see I'm all the way out to my darkest color, and really I'm just putting in little lines and dots of my shadows where I want it to be the darkest. We're going to be adding shading where 2 points meet and where one object lays on top of another. So typically for flowers, it's more the base that's going to be darker, or if you have a petal that's rolled over, it'll be darker underneath. If the center of the flowers will almost always be darker, but you can't just make it all dark if you want dimension. You have to just put in those couple little dots of dark and then work your way back out. You'll see in my center that even though it is darker than the larger petals on the outside, you can still see some of those highlights. And those highlights are needed in order to give it dimension and separation for that flower to not just look like a blob. Nobody wants blobby coloring. And so I'm going to show you each one of these flowers, which each one of those combinations. The only one that I did not use was the BV family. I did not use it in this card just because I didn't feel like it fit as well. So that one is missing as far as applying it to a flower, but all the other colors are here. So let's talk back to the sale. So this is a really fantastic sale. It is a buy two, get one free that Colorado Craft Company is doing. And it's just such a good way. It really is such a good way to like get all of what you're looking for. So there is a little bit of a trick to it. And here's how, I guess you can do it any way you want to, but if you go in there and you put like 7 things in your cart, it's going to give you the free thing as your least expensive items. That's just the way these sales work. So if it was me doing it, I would go in and I would do like my heavy price point items at one time. So like if I was looking at, like a $24 die set with like a $20 stamp set, I would then put in like another $20 stamp set so that third one would be free. And then I would do a second order. I would do a second order from some of maybe the lesser price point items that I wanted. So then that way those items would be free. Because if you put them all together, like if you put 6 items in there, the 2 that are free are going to be the ones that are the least expensive ones. And even if you have to pay shipping again, which free shipping, you get free shipping over $50. But so even if you have to pay shipping on both those orders, let's say you do, a $24, like 3 $24 stamp sets in your first order. If you have to pay the $6 in shipping, you're still saving $18, and that shipping will be free because you'll be over the $50. So then on your second order, that's where you'd be paying the $6 and you're still getting whatever you ordered on the second time free, and the first one for the $24 dollars, you'd still be saving $18. So that is how I would do it if I was in the market to be shopping this particular sale. So I hope you head over and check it out. One thing to note is the newest release, the bees that we just did in the honey jar, that is excluded from the sale. That is not part of the sale just because I think it's their newest release. So yeah, that's that. Here, like I said, I'm just doing the same thing, and you can see that even though my lightest color is this yellow, this flower still clearly looks orange, and that yellow is just brightening it up. So for that one, it's a Y08, and then my darkest color is a YR09. Here's where we're going to do the yellow one. Now, I have a tendency to color my yellows as if they're more of a yellow gold, which may not be your jam. But yellows are very challenging to shade and get dimension with because they're so bright. It's just, if you were looking for a lighter yellow, you could maybe swap out, like start with a Y00 and then, or even a Y000, and then go in 02 and 08 and the YR24. So there's a couple of different, you can play around with it and what's in your stash. There's other ones as well, like the RV69 is almost identical to, what other color is, I can't, if you have the Sandy Allnock hex chart, which is amazing because it's all done by color, there's another one that the color is almost identical to it. And you can see that on her hex chart. There were so many. If I had had that hex chart before I started buying my Copic markers, I probably could have saved myself so much money on buying ones that were almost exactly the same. But I didn't, and here we are. The R22 and the R32 are almost identical. You could definitely do the reds with the 20s family. So like an R20, an R22, an R24... I mean, those are pretty close together. The thing that you want to avoid in order to get dimension is so that you don't have to color with 18 different colors. You know, you don't need them all. Is that you want to get a good enough gap that have a distinct highlight and a distinct shadow. Like right now, this flower looks like a hot mess. I don't deny that. It does. It looks very brown. But as we go over them, because Copics are transparent, the lighter colors will lift the darker colors. And you could even see that in the examples that I was showing you in the very beginning. By going over this with your lighter colors as you're going back in, from your darkest to your lightest, it will lighten up and remove some of those darker colors, or at the very least change their tone. So, maybe they aren't super bright on their own, but putting the brighter color over them kind of brightens them up. That's definitely true with the orange in this case. So even though the yellows, our two darkest colors are more on the brown side, that flower is still very clearly yellow. It just has dimension in it. So as far as, general life things are going, there's a lot this week. That will be being shared. So I hope that you stick around for that. There's a couple of new releases that I'm blessed enough to be a part of. And so definitely, some different techniques that I've been playing around with and trying, which is always exciting. It's nice when you have the opportunity to kind of play around and just see how something turns out. Obviously, I still love coloring, as this video will tell you. This is kind of like my first love and my go-to is the bright colors. Bold black outline and a one layer card, that's what all of this is. But sometimes the things that I'm using don't lend themselves that well to that particular style. And it used to really bother me. I'm going to be honest, like with design teams, it used to really bother me when I couldn't pick what I was working with and somebody would just send me something. And then I was like just stuck with whatever it was. And I had a real hard time. And sometimes I still do, to be completely honest. sometimes I still have a really hard time getting through that mental block of this isn't my style. I don't know how to use it. But those are the cards that probably help me grow the most, because I'm forced into something new, whether I want to be or not, you know. And so I'm always grateful for the opportunity to get better at what I'm doing, instead of, you know, I'm not going to say that I don't. In fact, there was one that was recently that I was telling Eric, I was like, this is not my style. I don't even know what I'm going to do with this. And he was like, you're going to be fine. Stop being so negative. Like, it's going to be good. Here's some ideas, you know, these are your styles, some things that you could use it with. And just really supportive and encouraging, which I always appreciate. And it ended up being a card that I really loved the way that it came out, even though it was something that was different than what I would normally do. So, yeah, if this is something, you know, you get discouraged with your coloring, or you feel like, hey, maybe this is outside of my wheelhouse, or the dreaded, I'm never going to be as good as you. I don't want you to be as good as me. I want you to be as good as you. And that comparatively might be even better than me. And if that happens, I will do nothing but cheer you on. Because you're on your own journey learning new things. Then I'm on a different journey of learning things. And if what I have learned, I can then teach you and help you to learn new things and new skill sets that you want to know, then I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to do that. So here is the last flower. This one is more of like a bud than a full rose, but you still very much get the idea of how the shadows, highlights, lowlights work together, so that there are, you know, very clearly different segments of these petals that are together. And then once that is done, I just colored the hearts and everything else in the background. That top heart I colored the same way I did as the bottom one, and then the rest of them I didn't do any shading at all. I just did a flat wash of color. For the leaf, in order to get these a little bit more dimension and texture, I'm only using a 3-color blend. Because they're kind of tucked behind and a little bit smaller. I knew that they were going to be on the darker side because they're behind everything. But one of the things I'm doing to add texture is I am doing just a little flick of color where there's a wavy line on the outside toward the inside. And then I'm just reinforcing that by going back over with my middle color. And then for my lightest color, I'm not just going over everything again. Remember how I told you the lightest color will remove color? I don't want to do that for the leaves. I want to play up that dimension that we've created, that kind of stripiness that's in the leaves. So when I'm going in with my lightest color for the leaves, I'm doing just flicks of color to blend it slightly, but I'm not going over the darker colors because I don't want to remove that pigment. I want to keep a nice shadow and a nice highlight so that it has a lot of movement, and those striations give them a lot of movement. I also picked, it's a relatively close color combination. In hindsight, I kind of wish I would have went with a YG0103 and a 17, but I didn't. I went just a hair darker, and that's just for the other littler leaves that are drawn in that are a different style than the full-blown leaves, and it's just a way to add some more interest to the bouquet so it's not all one flat green color. This just kind of breaks it up a little. And then once those are done, I'm helpless to help myself because blue is my boyfriend. This is a really beautiful image on white. It is. I do not deny that. But I like to add a little outline. And for me, if I'm adding a little outline, my go-to is blue. So I'm using a B02, a B01, and a B triple zero. Triple zero? Quadruple zero. Let's look. Quadruple zero. So for the BG02, I'm just keeping it around the main image the BG01, I'm going to go right back over to the 2 with it and spread that out. I'm also going to use this one to outline the kind of hearts and sprigs and leaves that come off the top and bottom of this wreath. And again, I'm just doing little flicks of color in order to blend that out. And then the last one will be the B quadruple 0, and I will just blend that right out. It will blend out into the white pretty well. But again, I'm removing a little bit of color by completely covering up the previous blue colors so that they all kind of melt together and aren't such, like they don't have such distinct lines. Once that's done, this is totally optional. You don't have to do either one of these things, but they're things that I enjoy, especially with my 1-layer cards. I'm going to add a couple little white dots in here just for some interest. I'm also going to use it as a highlight on the hearts and on the flowers. So anywhere in the flowers where a petal is kind of bent over and there is a just a small part of the leaf that would have quite a bit of highlight, I'm adding just a little bit of white gel pen to this to just kind of bolster up that highlight in general. You could also add this to, the edges of your petals. I would caution you against kind of getting too heavy-handed with it because the white is a really strong highlight, so you don't want to be too crazy. You don't want every petal highlighted. And then I like a bold black outline. Most people think I'm insane that I do this, but I can't help myself. I like a bold black outline, and so I'm going back in. I'm using an EK Success journaling pen. However, they are discontinued, and so a good backup is a Micron. Here, I just wanted to show you that we really could have gone with any orientation for this little wreath, but I decided that I was going to make it a horizontal card so that I could use the sentiment. I totally dig the sentiment that says friendship makes life more beautiful. There's also some other ones like you're my person or you're so loved. Those are all really great sentiments too, but I super liked this one, and this is the way that it fit on my card, and so that is how it went. The only other things that I did was I added some gems to kind of accent the sentiment and just kind of bring the whole thing together. And then, I love the shimmers. Can't stop myself. I have a real addiction. And so I'm using a clear shimmer pen. I think this one is the Nuvo, to just go over my hearts and flowers. And then that is it. That's the whole card. So I hope that you learned a little bit about Copic color combinations, about how to apply them in your coloring. If you have any questions, by all means, leave them below. And if you're interested in that Colorado Crafts sale, I will link that below as well. I always appreciate when you shop through my links to support me and my channel. And that's it. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I will catch you on the next video. Bye.